In a world where truth once stood unshaken, the foundations of faith began to tremble, not by war, not by disaster, but by something far more subtle, a change in the very words people trusted for salvation. The Bible, revered and feared, was no longer what it used to be. In churches across nations, faithful believers clutched translations that looked holy, sounded sacred, but deep within, something was missing. Pastor Elijah, a man of fierce conviction and sleepless nights, began to notice the difference. He would read aloud from his grandfather's King James Bible, filled with majestic language and divine fire, only to hear his congregation respond from diluted versions that spoke of love but whispered confusion. One night, burdened by the growing apathy in his church, Elijah opened 6 modern translations side by side. What he saw chilled him. Son of God had been watered down to child of the divine. Hell was replaced with realm of the dead. Verses were vanished. Words rearranged. The blood of the Lamb became a metaphor. Sin softened to mistake. Judgment twisted into misunderstanding. He couldn't believe it. Was the sacred now subject to editorial preferences? He remembered Isaiah's cry, "Woe unto them that call evil good." The pastor began researching late into the night. Manuscripts, textual criticism, publisher backgrounds, he dug through every layer, every agenda. He discovered that many modern versions were not translated from the same manuscripts as the older ones. Some were based on texts that lacked entire verses. Some were owned by secular publishers, driven more by market reach than theological integrity. He even found versions where gender-neutral language erased the masculinity of Christ, turning he into they and distorting prophetic links across testaments. Elijah stood before his congregation that Sunday, trembling. "Dear brothers and sisters," he began, "what if the very book we trust has been rewritten not by prophets, but by committees?" The room fell into silence. What if the message of salvation has been diluted one synonym at a time? He showed them the verses missing. Matthew 18 verse 11, Acts 8 verses 37 and 1 John 5 verse 7, gone in some versions, footnoted in others. The gospel was becoming footnotes. He pointed to John 3 verse 16 in one modern Bible. For God so loved the world he gave his only Son. But the word, begotten, was missing. That single word confirmed the uniqueness of Christ, the only begotten of the Father. Without it, any son might do. It's not just about preference, Elijah thundered. It's about precision. He called it the silent Reformation, not led by martyrs, but by marketers. In this age, the enemy didn't burn Bibles, he printed them. Smooth, sleek, and subtle. A few laughed. Some walked out. But a remnant stayed, hungry for the truth. Elijah began a series called The Word and the Sword. Week by week, he compared translations, exposed omissions, traced agendas, and rekindled a reverence for the true word. He taught the youth that reading the Bible wasn't enough, they had to know what Bible they were reading. He challenged scholars to defend the changes. Some responded with logic and reason, citing linguistic updates and readability. But Elijah answered with power and pattern. If God preserved his word, he declared, then the devil surely wants to pervert it. He didn't oppose understanding, he opposed undermining. He wasn't against new words, only against new meanings. A revival stirred. People began comparing verses, printing old manuscripts, praying with urgency. The Bible was no longer a coffee table book, it was a battlefield. The world outside mocked. "It's just semantics," they said. God knows your heart. But Elijah knew, The road to compromise is paved with small changes. One vowel, one verse, one vision replaced. His warning grew louder. They are not translating the truth, they are transforming it. He warned parents, your child's Bible may be teaching a different Christ. He cried for discernment. He quoted Revelation, if any man shall take away from the words of this book, God shall take away his part from the book of life. The threat wasn't persecution anymore, it was pollution. And it wore the face of progress. One day, a young man named Marcus came to Elijah. Pastor, he said, I threw away my old NIV. I never noticed how it changed the meaning of Romans 8. But now, I'm reading with fear and fire. Elijah embraced him. The battle was not lost. Word by word, truth by truth, the remnant grew. Across the nation, other pastors began to rise. They hosted seminars, lost in translation. They printed side-by-side comparisons. They urged believers, don't just read, investigate. In time, even publishers felt the heat. Some revised their revisions. Some added the missing verses back, albeit with footnotes. Some refused. But the movement spread. A hunger for pure scripture awakened like dry bones rising. Yet the battle was not over. The enemy now used AI to generate interpretations. Spiritual influencers posted reimagined versions of scripture. Apps offered daily verses in your tone. Some verses were rewritten in slang. Others in poetic fragments. The Bible was becoming preference-based. Elijah warned again, this is Babel, divided languages, confused voices. One day, the pastor received a letter from a translator who had left his position. You were right, it said. They told us to adapt the tone, simplify the wrath, highlight the love. But I realized, we were making God in man's image. Elijah wept. In the final sermon before his death, he held the old Bible high. This book is not just paper and ink. It's the breath of God. And when we change his breath, we choke the Spirit. He fell ill soon after. But his legacy spread like wildfire. His church inscribed a plaque, hold fast to the form of sound words. The remnant became a movement. And though the world modernized, a holy few preserved the ancient paths. Not by might, not by eloquence, but by faith in every jot and tittle. They were mocked as old-fashioned, stubborn, extreme. But they endured, knowing that heaven and earth may pass away, but the word shall not. For the truth of God needs no upgrade. It only needs obedience. And in that obedience, the fire of revival was kindled again.